Naruto Storm Connections is a lot better than you think it is. It's actually a much better game than you thought it was. I've come to really like this game and really love it a lot. And I want to quickly outline my journey on this game. I know that this is basically the most hated Naruto Storm game of all time over the last 13 years, from Naruto Storm 2 back on the PlayStation 3 all the way to Naruto Storm 4 and then Naruto Storm Connections, right? Which we got in 2023, November 17th. So about 13 years, right, of Storm games. We had Naruto Storm 2, we had Naruto Storm Generations, which are many people's favorite game and that almost no one ever talks about. I love that game. I absolutely love Storm 2 and I love Generations for different reasons. But when Generations first came around, I hated Generations because I was used to Storm 2. It was something new, something different, and I thought that they were confining us with the substitution bars at the time. I thought that it wasn't the true nature and competitiveness of the game that Storm 2 was, with the free substitution bar used by your chakra, which was also a multiple source resource, where that same chakra bar resource you could use a substitution, right, which you get about 10 or so substitutions before that chakra bar is gone, maybe more. Or you could use a jutsu, or you could use a chakra dash, right? So it was a faceted and multi-form resource, all coming from the same resource, right? It's like you need water to live, and water comes from this one well, and everyone needs to use and ration that water appropriately for yourself and for the family and for the village to, have an equilibrium. So it was really quite wonderful, and it was really interesting having it lock there. And of course, you could see an evolution later on where it became its own resource, but at the same time, that evolution was sort of like a one step forward, two steps back, which is a common theme throughout all the Storm games. Not a lot of people will believe that, but I was the first person over 10 years ago to point out that trend, that in every Storm game, the developers, CyberConnect 2 and CC2, right? They see it as an evolution, and a lot of times it is, but in a lot of times the eyes of the fan and the experience of the fan, in the fans, it feels like a regression and an evolution at the same time, which kind of just puts us in a different odd space, almost like a Twilight Zone, where it's like an alternate reality, right? So well before the Marvel movies were really showing us these multiverse and multi-realities, of course in the comic books they did, but in the movies, right, CC2 was doing this, and the developers of these Storm games were doing this long before that, in a way. It's kind of an odd thing to think about, but that's kind of what it is. The point is, we make these leaps and bounds. The same thing happened from Generations to Storm 3. A lot of people love Generations more than they love Storm 3. Instant Awakening was introduced in this game, and a lot of people abused the Instant Awakening with Neji. With Mifune, with Nagato, a lot of these characters. They were completely broken when you flick that analog and you just mash, mash, mash. It became more of a masher. There's this stereotype and a negative stigma that Storm games are mashers, and at some level it's true. But at the highest level, it's really not true, especially in the newer games like Storm 4 and Connections, unless you use certain characters like Sage Mode Hashirama in Storm 4, who's still good in Connections, but not quite as good. The jails were taken away, right, from Storm Connections to Storm 4, or from Storm 4 to Connections. In Storm 4, you can jail your opponent. Once you get up close to them, they will not be able to breathe if you know what you're doing. In Connections, they simultaneously made the guard weaker, but they also made your defensive options more fair up close for the most part, where people have opportunities and chances in 50-50s or at least 60-40s or 70-30s to get out. Whereas with certain characters like Storm 2 Generation, Storm 3 Kakashi, right, from Storm 4, you just have no chance. And those characters like that Kakashi and his mash in Storm 4, and it still works in Connections, but in Storm 4 specifically, he was like a demon, much stronger. And it's almost impossible to get out of his hitboxes, because he has forward momentum, long-ranging hitboxes that cover a distance, right? And they're sticky, and they just get you in that jail, and they open up your subs, open up your guard, or lock your guard down, and it becomes this black hole of suction that just sucks you in. So you cannot really be too close from a lot of these characters, right? Like first Hokage Sage mode, uh, that Kakashi, a lot of different characters, right? It's really difficult. A lot of that was fixed in connections. It's one thing to really love about connections. The chakra recovery glitch was fixed in connections, where you don't get your chakra back when you switch after doing a jitsu or a chakra dash. This is actually a phenomenal thing. A lot of things were fixed in connections, making it more streamlined, making it more like a true, real fighting game, which fans really hate because they're used to what they had before. And I get it, because from Storm 2, when you went from Storm 2 to Gens, you kind of initially hated it and got this knee-jerk reaction that this is not the same game. When you went from Gens to Storm 3, same thing. Knee-jerk reaction that this is not the same game. A lot of people reported on it, and I think I was the first to say, that in Storm 3, you feel like you're on a train track or railroads on a train track and you can't really move, whereas in Storm 2 and Gens you had that freedom laterally, in that 360-degree freedom to do whatever you want, and then you could cancel it with a pill, right? There was tilt cancels and tilt loops that were infinite tilt loops in Generations, and that was a difficult thing. So it ended up starting to cost you something in Storm 3, but actually with Instant Awakening you could do this, right? With a little kunai trick as well. Problem is, it became so abusable that you could go the entire game doing this and never wasting your chakra, because the chakra would, you wouldn't waste the chakra. It would come back, right? That cap from when you go into Instant Awakening, if you could Instant Awaken in Storm 3 and then get out as quickly as possible instantly and then go back in and out, you could manage that cap on your bar, that punishment on your bar, that cost on your chakra bar for going into into Awakening with Instant Awakening, by getting out of it and avoiding the cost instantly by just going back to normal non-awakening form. So Revolutions improved upon this, and also improved upon the Generation Storm 3 problem, where chakra dashing and counter chakra dashing was the most annoying thing. One of the most annoying things in the game, where all people would do is dash, chakra dash, counter chakra dash, block, mash. This vicious cycle that people hated, that most people don't even remember, because these problems were literally fixed, and no one gives the developers of Naruto, Storm, CyberConnect 2, and CC2 any credit for this. They don't give them their flowers. They don't say they did a great job when they did. And we need to start doing that. Not just point out when they did things that we don't think was good, and give your reasons why. Don't just talk emotionally about it, because it doesn't help anybody. Try to work through your emotions and get to the points, right? I get it. It can be difficult. The thing that really messes us up, though, is the netcode and the lag, and that really drives it home, this negative feeling that we get where we can't move, we can't act, and we're experiencing fake games. This has been a historic problem from Storm 2 to Connections, but Connections probably has the second best netcode out of the games, but during the events, it's like the worst, and it's like 10 times worse, so don't play during events. So very interesting. They even fixed this issue where mashing wasn't even a thing anymore, like when the game released in pre-patch, because jutsus were a thing. You were supposed to do jutsu entries and support entries, but no one really liked that. It was such a different thing and a different experience than what we were used to, that people really freaked out about getting hit with jutsus and cinematic jutsus all the time. And that was fixed. It was brought more back to like a Storm 4 feeling, where the armor at the beginning and end of a jutsu, right? Usually the armor started at frame 1 and ended at the last frame of the jutsu, and you were kind of invincible for the most part, depending on that jutsu's properties, right? And you were enhanced. You were a stronger version of yourself. It's really interesting. They changed that, and they took the armor off the beginning and end, so now you're vulnerable a lot of the times, especially in startup frames. And people are still not happy. And I can say the game was a lot more exciting before they patched it, but it's a lot better, a lot more balanced, and a lot more competitive. It is probably the most competitive Storm game in Naruto Storm history, and it's just very, very sad that the community is not giving it a chance or trying to figure out what this new game has to offer. Instead of drowning in our nostalgia, we sometimes need to just get over this and try the new thing and give the new kid on the block a chance. I hope you have a fantastic day, an amazing day. If not, I hope it gets better for you soon.